Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. Just a few logistics. So, TRI is taking notes. Thank you so much, Hannah and Sherry and everybody. I know some of you are also handling toddlers as you do some of this work. And then I'll just remind folks, we'll be following the agenda as closely as we possibly can. And also we'll be monitoring the chat as well. So John, Lisa, and I will kind of be taking turns doing that as we go. So we'll just keep going. Yeah, Jerry, thank you for catching that. Let me just make a quick change here. Start here. Okay, it's April 7th. That is the agenda for today. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. John said he did not want to do an icebreaker today, so we'll pass on that. And we'll go ahead and start with some updates. And Joan is with us to get us started.
Good morning, everybody. Great to see everyone, and welcome to all of our guests. We're very excited about some of the information that they have to share with us today and the opportunities that it presents for providers across the state. I'm really going to be super brief today, just to give a brief update on kind of where things stand. So, as you know, Congress passed the CARES Act on April 4th. There's still a lot of information that's yet to come to states regarding the expectations for exactly related to exactly how much funding we're going to receive, though we think it's in the neighborhood of $38 million in one-time CCDF funds. We have some sense from the act itself about how to spend those dollars, but there's not been federal guidance issued yet, and we don't have an official award letter. But there is work underway, which I talked about when we were together a little bit last week. That work continues to be in progress. ELD is working with the Department of Human Services associated with some things that have been happening related to ERDC. We are also working closely with a variety of stakeholders, and I expect that there will be more information later this week regarding the proposal associated with implementing the CCDF part of the CARES Act here in Oregon. We continue to work with OHA around the safe operations of emergency child care. I appreciate many of you continue to send questions, letting us know kind of what people are experiencing or what you might be hearing. And that's really very helpful to us because we then feed those questions to OHA if we haven't answered them yet, because we want to make sure that we're always advising people from the perspective of health and safety associated with operations during this time of emergency. We are hearing that some people are thinking that this is going to be kind of wrapped up by April 28th. That could be a day that kind of stuck in people's minds. So we're going to work on getting some more guidance, and also hearing that maybe people are thinking that they can have some kind of social activities at the Easter time, and if they just keep people properly away from each other. So I'm hoping that we will be updating our FAQs to respond to these, but please continue to forward the issues that you receive. You can send them directly to us, or you can submit them through the website. We generally are updating FAQs almost every day, so it is a really great place to make sure that you're staying sort of on top of the work that we're doing at any time. We are working with OHA to make sure that we're responding to, for example, with the CDC coming out and recommending the use of cloth face masks. So we're in conversations with them yesterday about what does that mean for childcare. So that information will be coming out soon. And if you follow OHA and receive the regular updates, you would have seen that even last night they sort of directly said the most important things that people can do are the things that they've already been doing. Wash your hands, practice physical distancing, that they're really emphasizing the importance of those activities are far, far, far more important than face masks. So Oregon Health Authority has a perspective on that, which we'll be sharing with you. We anticipate that there may be some additional guidance coming out from the Department of Education associated with school-based emergency childcare, maybe Wednesday. A specific date hasn't been set yet. As you all have been experiencing, we have a significant number of vacancies, at least right now, in the childcare that are open for emergency childcare. About half of our regulated providers have filed to be emergency childcare providers during this time, and many of them are not full. There are lots of available openings. So I think part of what this emergency childcare guidance coming out from ODE will kind of respond a little bit, and I know we'll be talking about this a little bit more later too, like how do we sort of right size our supply with the demand, and can we create a situation where if we need additional demand, we can get access to that, but that we're not opening up childcare that's not needed when there's not really demand for that. So I think that's a problem. There is a survey that went out last week from staff to lots of different people around the state, including to state employees, to try to understand emergency childcare need. We haven't seen the data from that survey yet, but that data will also be really helpful in making sure that, again, we're right-sizing supply with demand because, as we said, I've been saying all along in these meetings, like, we are asking people to operate during a pandemic. So no one should be operating childcare that isn't absolutely necessary for the population of people that we most fundamentally must serve, essential personnel. And I think that's it for updates that I was going to provide this morning. And unless there's any questions that people would like to ask, we can go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, but happy to answer questions.
Joan, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When this all started, I remember hearing that the emergency care in schools was going to be free, and then it sounded, I think, like that changed. And now I'm wondering, what I heard most recently from the schools actually is that they can charge or they can offer it for free. Is that accurate?
Is Brett on this call by chance?
Yep, I'm here.
I'd love to have you answer that question, Brett, or maybe we don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, when the original executive order came out directing schools to offer emergency care, I believe that it was assumed that it would be free, but the executive order does not stipulate that it must be free. And so some school districts have made it free, and others have, typically when they're working with a third-party provider to offer care, are charging families a daily fee just as you would at any other center-based type of program. I believe, but I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to get too out in front on this, so take this with a grain of salt, that we will be seeing additional and updated and more comprehensive guidance from ODE this week, hopefully, fingers crossed, regarding school-based emergency childcare and what the requirements are and what they are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And I believe, again, not 100% sure, but I believe we will see language that addresses whether or not they can charge families for that care. And my best guess is that it will be something along the lines of they can, if they receive permission from ODE to do so. And I can't imagine a scenario where if permission was requested, it would not be granted. So I think the bottom line is we're going to continue to see a mix of programs that are charging fees and programs that are not charging fees for the foreseeable future, unless there is unless there is an additional policy directive that comes straight from the governor's office saying that it's not something that school districts can do.
All right, thank you for that. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. You all probably thought about this 1,000 times, but just an idea of what's going on in our community. An article came out in the paper recently about how the school districts and all these other, there's this big collaboration going on, which is great, and they're advertising free child everybody. So just, keep in mind what that's doing to, what's going to do to the supply of care on the back end here. And I don't expect any of us actually have the answers to that. I mean, that dynamic was already there. Now it was in the paper. I'm trying to counterbalance and I'm trying to make contacts and kind of explain how and why family child care is important here, but pretty hard to compete, especially when it's advertised.
Sure. Yeah, and I think one of the things that we can do, and this is in my communications with school districts, this is what I've tried to do, is encourage them to focus on providing care for school-aged children. The executive order, creating this school-based emergency child care was, I believe, originally intended for children aged 0 to 12. But we know with the supply of other emergency child care providers that we have on hand that there's less of a need there. And if school-based providers focus primarily on serving children that would, in normal circumstances, be in school buildings, then the impact felt by childcare providers in their community should be mitigated. And this is, kind of to Joan's point about the survey that's happening. Part of this is really, right-sizing the supply and demand at the community level. And school districts have asked me, well, how many classrooms should we open and how extensively should we be advertising? And the reality is that those questions have different answers for every single community in the state, and are really multidimensional. And so it's, I understand that, the perception is out there, and in some cases the reality is out there that families are opting into free childcare through their school district and opting out of space where they'd have to pay in the community. I think that based on what we know about the supply of the school-based childcare right now, and particularly the percentage of that school-based childcare that's actually being offered for free, that should be, a relatively, it should be a relatively small and hopefully relatively isolated problem to the extent that we could get out in front of it with the messaging and communications around who the school-based sites are really best positioned to serve in their communities.
Thanks, Brad. I also want to notice that we had a couple of other comments associated, and I think we're all really clear that the opportunity to access something advertised as free definitely is a game changer for families who might already be struggling. So hopefully with this new guidance, clarifying some of that should ease off on if it comes out the way we're hoping, as Brett described, we're hoping that might ease off some of that, but there's no getting around the fact that there's definitely a mixed message out there right now. I know Heather had also made a comment, like, I hope we're not asking family child care to close, to right size. I'm not saying that. I think what we're saying is, let's maybe not open up any additional emergency child care if we already have 2,000 emergency child care settings open around the state. Let's use those first before we open other ones. So I think our commitment, of course, is to help to try to do whatever we can to support the providers that are open and to make sure that they have the opportunity for referrals. And that extends also to license exempt providers caring for 4 or fewer children, and making sure that those providers are also offered, if they have openings and are available, that they're also offered the opportunity to serve families.
Thank you, Joan, and thank you, Brett. We also have a few other questions in here. Let's go ahead, though, at this point in time, because I think we can circle back. We've got a little bit of time to talk more about emergency childcare coming up. And at this point in time, I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and move it to our presenters, Heidi McGowan and Danielle Pacifico Kogan, who are going to talk about the Provider Relief Guide and the website and the coalition that has gathered to support providers during this time. So with that, I would like to, let's see, I'm kind of looking at all the faces, seeing if I can find Heidi on here. And Danielle, if Heidi, you want to go ahead and maybe get us going. And I would like to ask, I do have your PowerPoint, which I can maneuver, or I could share the screen with one of you. And I think someone's typing. If you could put it on mute, that would be great. Thank you.
Danielle, would you like the screen for the PowerPoint?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Would you like to have the screen to drive the PowerPoint?
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Okay, great.
Okay, I'm going to make you presenter.
Go ahead and kick us a start talking while you get the technology worked out. Sound good?
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds great. Thanks, Heidi. Go for it.
Yeah, so really happy to be with you all. It's again, great to partner with you all as we navigate change, challenge, and right now crisis. Just to share a little bit about me, as most of you know, I'm a consultant and focus in a variety of areas, board development, engagement, leadership development, and also policy and impact. And so that's where we keep intersecting in our work together in early childhood, which is a privilege. And about a couple weeks ago, exactly, Oregon Community Foundation reached out to me with a request for some support, primarily that is focused on helping childcare programs access financial resources that are emerging and forthcoming from the feds, the state, but also there are local communities popping up all over the place with some financial resources. In the effort, I knew that we needed to pull together and communicate back out to providers in a really simple, digestible way. It was right about that time. I think I read the CARES Act or something similar to it, and I read it 10 times and thought, oh my gosh, what is this saying? It was so confusing. So I reached out to Danielle, who is also a consultant. Many of you might know her from her work at Children's Institute. She's a consultant specializing, she's an expert consultant in communication, community engagement, culture, organizational culture. And I know I haven't captured all of that, Danielle, so you can fill in when I pop over to you. But I was so grateful Danielle said yes to joining and working and partnering with me. So our primary focus at that time was to be in support of the Early Learning Division. Our work is in support of the division and the emerging needs, recognizing you are all focused on emergency care and the landscape right now, while we are really focused on how do we connect childcare providers with financial resources, knowing if they don't, we're not going to see them come back. And we already are in a crisis level shortage of childcare in our state, in particular infant toddler. So if we aren't able to access and get the dollars that are out there into the hands of providers, we're looking forward in the next month or 2 or 3 to shortages that we've not seen before. So at the same time, what was happening is there was a team that was emerging and popping up within the same days of this conversation I had with Mary Louise McClintock from OCF. There were predominantly centered in Multnomah County. Christine was one of them from the Multnomah CCRR. A group of philanthropy, advocacy, support agencies, advocates came together just ad hoc, said, how do we get these resources into providers? Because we know they're going to, if we aren't ever going to achieve our goals that we've been working on collectively, if we don't keep these folks in business, if we don't keep these services going. And so the two primary things that emerged in that effort were, one, we've got to get information to providers that makes sense, is easy to understand, you know, as best we can, that can help them access these resources. And we also need to come alongside and provide just a little bit of personal assistance where desired. Recognizing, and having conversations with Christine, recognizing CCRNRs are already working 12-hour days, and just to say, okay, good luck you guys, go share all this information with providers, knowing you don't always have that capacity. That said, as we're thinking about the need for personal assistance, I know that we've got to work it really tightly in partnership so that we can leverage the conversations you're having with providers and also provide personal assistance that's enhancing and supporting the work you're doing. So again, two prongs here, two purposes: information that's easily accessible in one place, and personal support. And we're thinking of personal support through sort of a peer coach model. So I will be subcontracting with 4 to 5 peer coaches, childcare peer coaches, who are childcare providers themselves, ideally, and going through this process themselves. So going through and applying for the SBA loans, going through and accessing the Payroll Protection Act program. So, you know, they're experiencing it firsthand. They may not be experts in everything, but they can offer a peer, warm, caring, listening voice that's like, I understand. So how you get to this peer coach is, there's been a website developed. It is right there. It's called the Oregon Provider Relief Guide, and it is orproviderrelief.org. And there is a place in there for an intake form. So if a childcare provider wants to talk to somebody about some of the information, they fill out the intake form. Leslie Barnes is the lead peer coach, and she will review kind of who comes through and either refer them out to a peer coach depending on their needs. And if there are specialized needs, such as diverse languages or that maybe don't exist on this small team, or you just know that they're better suited to be talking to you all on the front lines, it would be a referral out to one of you if they're in your region. And there is also a team, a volunteer network that ideally is forming of experts like HR, accounting, business, who are willing and have said, yes, I'll be willing to talk to a childcare provider if they're having real struggles. That's in formation right now. Again, it's been 2 weeks. The website popped up. There are 3 coaches on board, and the volunteer network. I'm not leading the volunteer network, but that is something that's being recruited right now through this coalition. So I'm going to pause there. Does that make sense? So the role, let me just explain, let me reinforce. The role of the coach is to be a listener, a peer coach, just to share information about how to access some of these financial resources. And if there's a need to share out information, additional information and support, they'll connect that individual with you all or an expert. There was one other thing. I have a few asks of you, and then I'll turn it over to Danielle, who we had thought we would just walk through all of these detailed resources with you so that you all are equipped with some of these resources and knowledge as well. We'll kind of pop through it quickly. The first thing, the first ask I have is if you can push out the COVID resource document. There's a resource guide. I think most of you have had it it's been shared with you. I think Margie and John, you all sent it out. That has the website on there. You can push it out, let folks know it's a support there and that there are some people willing to provide some assistance. If you all, I know you've identified a point person for each of your CCRNRs. If that point person can try to get steeped in this information as best you can, recognizing it's tough stuff. And then if you can let me know if there are local grant dollars available. We're trying to get this together it's kind of hard to make happen in a really short period of time, but we also know that if providers don't access these resources now, they'll be gone. So it's really, really time sensitive. I'm going to stop there. How about we hold questions until Danielle, you want to pop through some of the resources real quick, and then we'll pause.
All right. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Hi, I'm Danielle Pacifico-Kogan, and thank you for having me talk with you this morning. And I just want to warn you that there may be dogs and children in the background, but I will do my best to minimize that noise. So in terms of the federal COVID small business relief, so the federal government at this point has put out about 3 rounds of legislation to provide relief to employees and employers, and this is ever changing, right? Tomorrow, we don't know what's going to happen. The word on the street is that the House of Representatives is now pushing for a 4th stimulus program or 4th stimulus bill. So tomorrow, things may change. This information is in flux, and this information is gathered from the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Treasury, as well as the Main Street Alliance, which is an advocacy organization for small business nationwide. So the 3 forms of small business relief which do apply to child care providers are loans and grant programs, reimbursable paid leave, and unemployment insurance. And of the small business grant and loan programs, the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loans and Emergency Economic Injury Grants, and the Refundable Employee Retention Credit are kind of the 3 big pieces right now. There's also debt relief for SBA borrowers, which is Small Business Administration borrowers, but that is not as clear at this time. So I'll go on to the next slide. So the Paycheck Protection Program, it is available now. The concern is that financial institutions, from the big banks like Chase and Bank of America to credit unions, have not received clear guidance from the U.S. Department of Treasury about how to process the applications. So there is great concern, and the pool of money in the Paycheck Protection Program, known as PPP, is about $350 billion across the United States. So that's not a giant pool of money for all of the small businesses that exist in the United States. But the federal government claims that they are working on trying to streamline the process of applications. The good thing about this program is that it's 8 weeks of cash assistance, and it covers everything from wages to benefits to mortgage, interest, utilities, and other forms of debt. You can borrow about 2.5% of your monthly payroll, or up to $10 million. And the provisions for rehiring employees are without penalty. But the big thing to remember about this piece of the program is that it's available only through SBA, Small Business Administration, 7A approved lenders. So that means that there's a certain group of lenders who are already involved with the Small Business Administration and may provide loans to small business owners. So small business owners would have to go directly to their current SBA borrower and ask for this loan or ask to be involved in this program. And if their current banker is not part of the SBA 7A program, they would have to ask that banker to, if they had a relationship with a bank or financial institution that is involved in the program, or they could go finally to the SBA's website and find a list of providers, a list of financial institutions that are part of this program. So if you know small business owners who are interested in this program, it's really important for them to have a few documents ready. One is the sample application that is, I think, in the meeting notes here for the PPP, as well as all current financial information. So if the child care provider has already filed their taxes for 2019, having all of that information available, and if not, as much information as possible as they can gather from their 2018 tax returns, as well as profit and loss to date and expenses to date. Okay, next slide then will be the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, EIDL, and Emergency Economic Injury Grants. These grants and loans are typically provided by the Small Business Administration for natural disaster relief, and they've been extended to COVID-19. So this once again is a loan of up to $2 million with 3.75% interest and deferment up to 4 years. And the grants and loans can be used for payroll up to $10,000, employee sick leave, rent, and other business obligations. And this fund can be applied for through the Small Business Administration directly, and the website address is disasterloan.sba.gov. What's important to note here is that the Small Business Administration is saying that a lot of these loans can actually be converted to grants. So it'd be really important for anybody who's interested in applying to go to that website and try to get as much information as they can possibly get. So when they do actually apply for the loan, that they're ready to go, because this is also another website that has actually, last time I checked, it crashed because there was so much traffic. Okay, next slide, please. So that would be the refundable employee retention credit. And this is for businesses with fewer than 100 employees, which I believe most child care providers can actually qualify for. And it covers up to 50% of wages for the period of time between March 12, 2020 and January 1st, 2021. And what's really important is that it cannot be combined with a paycheck protection program. And another piece is that this credit becomes available to employers when they file their federal tax returns, but an advance can also be requested. So at the bottom of this slide, you'll see the link for form IRS Form 7200, as well as the instructions for the form, because this opportunity actually could be good for providers who might need that advance and cannot wait until their quarterly taxes are filed to do some refundable employee retention. And so generally then there's that debt relief for SBA borrowers. It's not very clear what that debt relief looks like. So the federal government through the Department of Treasury is urging small business owners to contact their current SBA loan providers if they actually currently have an SBA loan. Okay, so the reimbursable family first paid sick time and leave, this is really important obviously for employers as well as employees. And there's that 2-week paid sick time if the employee is quarantined and or has a medical diagnosis for COVID. And so there's actually a specific language from the IRS and the Department of Labor about what qualifies as quarantine and medical diagnosis. And then there is the $200 a day for childcare as well. And so to get that access to that information, I will send the web address for the Department of Labor and for the Treasury after this meeting, just for the clarity about what this actually means and who qualifies. Because there's a question of whether or not when Governor Brown asked us to stay home and stay in place, if that would qualify as a quarantine, or if there is another measure that would have to be met to qualify for quarantine. And also the reimbursable family first paid sick time and leave is the employers will receive 100% reimbursement for paid leave. It is a tax credit that's coming from there's also an advanced tax credit that's coming from the Treasury Department, and the information is available through the IRS, but the IRS has not designated a clear website for that yet. Okay, next piece, so in development, we have the piece about furloughed employees perhaps not being eligible for this leave. This is still in process, as well as information about what this looks like for rehired employees and what kind of paperwork would need to be filled out. And the Department of Labor is working on those guidelines now. Okay, and so in terms of unemployment insurance programs, there is a pandemic unemployment compensation, which is the increase in benefits, the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, which is the increase of length of benefits, and the unemployment assistance, which goes to workers who aren't normally eligible, and then the short time compensation for reduced hours. And so to apply for that, employees will have to go through the traditional means of applying for unemployment insurance. And so just to give more detail on that pandemic unemployment compensation and what it looks like, it runs through July 31st. It's an additional $600 a week. And there's a federal funding to waive the 1-week waiting period of applying for unemployment benefits. And as most of you have already seen, I believe last week was the largest application for unemployment benefits in the history of the United States. So it's my understanding, I think it was last week, that 3.3 million people applied for unemployment benefits across the country. This is bigger than the 1987 Black Monday stock market crash, larger than the amount of people who applied for unemployment benefits during the Great Recession. So this is a significant number of people, and the processing time on this is still unclear. All right, and then next page is the unemployment assistance and what that looks like. So the benefits for unemployment go up to 30 weeks for people who have not normally been eligible for state unemployment. This is going to apply to people who are self-employed, and I don't know if that would be the same as a child care provider who is the sole employee of their business. And then this is available retroactively from January 29th to December 31st. I don't know what that means for Oregon, because it seems that in Oregon, COVID-19 was not necessarily on our radar as early as January 29th. So that's it for me, and the floor is now open for questions.
Danielle, there was one question that popped up in the chat box.
Okay.
Asking if you can go over I'm not sure which slide, but about not being able to double dip.
Yeah, okay. So let me go back to, let me see if I can find it. So excuse me for inappropriate scrolling, and I try to find the right slide. Yeah, is this the one, that Paycheck Protection Program?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And that's the thing I'm just reading this, and clearly I'm not a financial expert, nor am I an expert on the federal government. This is just gathering as much information as possible from the different sources, is that it's not really clear how to avoid the double dipping. So I would say that let's say for instance, somebody applied for the Paycheck Protection Program, they would use the PPP to cover the wages and health benefits through the TPP, and then they would use the next program, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. They would use that actually, let's reverse that. So you can use the Economic Injury Disaster Loan to cover costs on payroll, emergency sick leave, rent, and then you could use the PPP for something else, which would be health benefits or interest on other debt or utilities. So you would split what you would use the funds for. I think with the Paycheck Protection Program, because it is available now, most people, from what I've been reading, are just using that fund to pay specifically for wages that have been lost or will be lost coming now.
Yeah, and that's the one that I think there's all the fear that it's going to run out. So that's the one that's probably most time sensitive and where we really want to direct people to.
Yes, I would say apply now, because it was made available Friday, April 3rd. But the problem was that the federal government didn't have guidance. So some banks, big banks, credit unions, aren't necessarily participating. But it would be important for providers to call their banks and ask them if they're participating. If they are participating, 7A SBA lenders, right? And if they're not, if they can, refer them to a bank that is. And if the bank says we don't know anybody, then they can go to the SBA website, and there is a list of 100 banks that are already part of the SBA 7A program. The concern is that you're most likely to get a loan from a lender who already knows you. So going to that third step of going to the SBA list, there is a concern that those lenders may not be as open to providing funding and support because of the lack of a relationship. But at this point, it's almost like all in. You have to do what you have to do and search out every resource available. So there's that.
Danielle, there's another question here around what resources can childcare providers who don't have a social security number access, or who use an ITIN?
Yeah, so I looked into that, and I have not seen any information specifically about that. So what I will do is look that up and see if providers who use EIN numbers can access any of these federal funds.
Awesome. Juana, did that answer your question? Great. Other questions? I know this is a lot, and we'll send, Margie said she'll send this all out to you after today's presentation so you have it. I hope this is helpful even with your staff and teams, just start getting kind of steeped in it in one spot.
So Heidi, just to bring out what you were saying earlier, and that is it's really important for the CCRNRs to get this information out to providers as soon as possible, knowing, you know, the timeliness of accessing these resources, and also being able to support them in accessing it. Is that right?
Absolutely. That 2-page document it has the links on it. It has the link to the website as well. But that 2-page document.
And that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that came from Joan
Right.
on Friday. It went to all the CCRNR directors and the hub directors, and then I also forwarded it to all of the other CCRNR partners just to make sure they had that information.
Right.
So.
Right. Thank you.
And then can we expect to hear more then about those point people in each of the regions, kind of the, about kind of being a little bit more of a resource or an I don't want to say expert, but kind of a coach, a supporter in accessing this, working with the core coach team that you talked about a little earlier?
You'd like to hear more about that, Margie? Is that your question?
Or we will hear more, right? You'll be providing us with updates.
Yep. Yeah. I'd like to nail down the total team so we can share that with you. But you know, we're thinking they're childcare providers, predominantly, I think. And we were thinking kind of regionally, because just to have some kind of it just helps when, you know, you have people who are somewhat spread out, and, you know, the reality is it doesn't really matter where this individual is. And
especially now.
Right. However, we did try to pull some folks, you know, from Eastern, Central, and Metro, and at the same time, our Spanish-speaking peer coaches will likely, we're going to need to, there needs to be responsiveness statewide. The mission is statewide, it's not regional focused, but we just tried to pull people from a variety of places. And the reality is, and truth is, if we had all the funding in the world, I'd try to do this like in a whole bunch of places. But, you know, I feel like we're fortunate to be able to get, you know, 40 to 80 hours allocated for one individual peer coach. And most of these childcare providers are not working. And so it's an opportunity, you know, to access their knowledge during their closure.
Great. Well, Danielle and Heidi, thank you so much. Are there any more questions? It looks like we have one more question. Juana?
Is it okay that a provider applies for the loan/grants and also for unemployment? Did you hear
the provider themselves apply for both?
Yes. So yes, the provider themselves apply for unemployment, and let's say they also apply for the grants.
So they can apply for the grant for their other employees, but they probably should not apply for the grant for their own debt, for their own wages.
Not apply for the paycheck protection, right?
Yeah, for their own, like they should apply for unemployment for themselves as an individual if they fall into that self-employment category. I'm trying to go back to the slide where yeah. So it's slide number 14, right? So if a provider is an individual provider and they're the only employee, they can apply for themselves on the unemployment.
They can apply for unemployment. Yes, they can.
Yeah. If they're,
okay.
Yes, they can, if they are self-employed.
Okay, and so they can apply for unemployment, and then they can apply for the economic injury loan as well?
Yes, let's see, I'm going to go back to that slide just so I don't give you bad information. So they can apply for that, but it has to be for, it could be for rent and other business obligations, or for payroll for other employees if they have other employees.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. And just to summarize, we will definitely be sending this presentation, this PowerPoint out to everyone. It has not been sent yet, so we'll send that out after the meeting. And also, we will resend Joan's message that went out on Friday to all of the directors, make sure everyone has that again. And then also, I would imagine Denise or Brett, if you want to speak up, or Joan, we'd really like the hubs to have this as well. And so we'll work out how to best present to them. So,
great. Yes, we will.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks again, Danielle and Heidi. This work is amazing. And Christine, I know you're involved in this as well. So thanks so much for this incredible work.
Thank you for your time. It's greatly appreciated. Bye.
Take care, y'all.
Yes, bye. Okay, I'll go back to sharing my screen. Let's see, we've been at this for almost an hour. Shall we take just about 3 minutes and come back? Just take a deep breath, let some of this sink in, and then we'll be back, and let's give it about 4 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and get started. Thanks. We have a 2-hour meeting today, so I thought this might be a good breaking point. I don't know if that's a good term to use right now, but anyway, a good little break. So our next agenda item is talking about the CCRR's role and how crucial it is in COVID-19 response, and knowing that there definitely is changing, things are changing rapidly, roles are changing rapidly, and so we really want to get some clarity. However, what I'd like to do is, even though we have this later on the agenda, I would ask maybe Lisa and Denise to share, which I do think ties into how we're supporting providers, to share the latest news.
Sure, this is Lisa. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we wanted to let you know what's going on with the supplies, because we know you've been getting lots of questions from early educators and are wanting to get that information out right away. So the good news is we were in a meeting this morning where we learned that our partners at DAS are going to be set and ready to go. So I am going to be sending you an email right after this meeting with all of the details that you need to know around this. Did want to let you know that we've been working on ordering supplies since all of this kind of happened. So it's really taken quite a while for all of this to become a reality, for us to start getting supplies and have a process in place to get them out to providers. So I know, I think it was last week we communicated with you and let you know that material supplies, emergency supplies, are going to be shipped out to providers directly from our warehouse. So that's great news. You guys all did step up to the plate to try and figure out how you were going to be able to assist with that if need be. But luckily, we've got a crew at DAS to work on this on their end. So it's going to be sent out directly to providers. The interesting part about the supplies that are coming in is they're not a small amount. So when you direct providers to the order form, which again, we're going to be sending you everything you need to know around this a little bit later. But they're going to be ordering, generally speaking, they're going to click, the box, which will say 1. Well, 1 doesn't mean that they're going to get one little container of, vegetables or something. It's going to be 1 case. So unless they are a larger facility where there's more than 1 classroom, when they order 1, they're going to get an ample supply. It's 1 case. So the example we've been using a lot is spoons. They're not going to get 1 spoon. They're going to get a box which has about 500 spoons in it. So they will be fairly set in regard to that. We've got ELD staff who are going to be designated to review and approve orders as they do come in. So again, nothing is really falling on any of you on all of this, except for when we get to the licensed exempt family child care providers. We are going to be asking you to reach out to the licensed exempt family child care providers to find out if they are doing care at this time. Now, we know that the licensed exempt family child care providers are not falling into that emergency child care category, but we do know that they're already still providing care for the families that they serve, and so therefore they do qualify for the supplies just like everybody else does. So I am going to send you a detailed step-by-step of calling these providers, the information we want you collecting, how to correctly collect it in NACRAWare, and then also you're going to be letting them know, you're going to be sending them something after you talk to them and identify that they are in fact doing care. You're going to give them the link to the order form so that then they can go ahead and order supplies as they need them. If you happen to be working with somebody who doesn't have access to a computer, you can absolutely help them order the materials, the supplies that they need. And that information is also going to be captured in the email that I'm going to be sending you. So let me think here. We're going to provide you with an Excel spreadsheet that on a daily basis, we're going to ask you to capture the names of these providers, these license exempt providers who you've given access to, and you're going to enter into that Excel spreadsheet daily. And that way we are able to track at Early Learning Division who we can expect to be receiving orders from. I'm going to just kind of pause there. And Denise, John, did I miss anything that you want to touch base on?
I think you've got it. We're going live at noon, so that's the good thing. The letters will start, I guess, going out. Hopefully, John from TRI, anytime after afternoon. So, and I do think this one thing that's worth saying is that the unfortunate, situation is we know that people are desperate for things like hand sanitizer and wipes, and they're really hard to come by. So, the only things that are on the order form every day are what's available in the warehouse. We do not want to set expectations for things that may or may not arrive today, tomorrow, 3 weeks from now. So I was at the warehouse on Friday. We have paper products and a lot of food, and we do have gloves, but no hand sanitizer at this moment, no formula, no diapers. We're still waiting on those items. So I just, as far as when you're talking to providers and setting expectations, if they have other options, we should explore all options and not wait for the cavalry to come, because, we're competing against the whole world for these supplies. And of course, medical has first dibs on everything. So I think if there are other options to get things, then folks should definitely utilize those as well.
And not all supplies are ready at one time. Like, we don't have everything right now. So one thing, and again, my email hopefully will lay everything out really clearly for you, is we want to encourage people to check the order form on a regular basis. Correct, Denise?
Yes, because it'll be updated every afternoon. So UPS ships at 3 o'clock. So we'll take all the orders from the day. They'll ship them, anything that's in that they can get packed by 3. And what I understood with the medical supplies is they were shipping literally overnight. I can't guarantee that's how ours will work. We'll know a little bit more in a couple days. We'll provide some written updates to you as things progress after today. But people should check back, because as items are added, the form will be updated, or as things are expiring, the form will be updated. So they'll only see in real time what is available.
And the other thing I want to just really drill down on, especially when we're talking about the license exempt providers, is that they do have to be currently doing care. They have to be providing care to families. It's not just because they have that they offer childcare. They need to be providing care to at least one family. So that's the key piece with the license exempt. And then, I don't know, John, do you want to touch base on the emergency childcare part?
Sure. So a little bit later today, and TRI, feel free to jump in, but there will be the emails going out to all of the programs that have been designated as emergency childcare programs that are in the system and in NACRWare. And that will be pushed out today to everyone who's in that grouping, and then on a daily basis will actually, sorry, not on a daily basis. I was informed by Sherry today that the beauty of this is, as any new provider is entered into the system, they will receive that message automatically. And so once we get that initial push out, they'll have a little bit of information, and we're going to send this letter out to you guys before it goes out today, but you'll see that it's in the 5 different languages, and that it allows people to go in and look for their supplies and order their supplies through a link on there. They can go in and if someone receives it and decides they want to sign up or send it to somebody to sign up to be an emergency substitute, that link's in there. And then also if they are needing substitutes, that is in there. So that we're expecting that that will be another big push here in this coming week, because we haven't marketed out the subs to all of those programs exactly with this sort of level of push. It's been coming from all of the licensors as they've been talking to programs, but it hasn't necessarily been marketed in a different way. So more to come on that. You'll see those letters, and when we get to the substitute agenda item, I'll say a few more things.
Great. Thank you. Lisa, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Thanks, Margie. I just noticed that Christine had a question around whether, when they're talking to license exempt providers, if they can just do the order for them at that time. And absolutely yes. I mean, whatever works is easiest, is going to help that provider get an order put in as quickly as possible. Then yes, you can do that with them versus sending them the letter. The other thing I guess I should just mention is that none of these supplies are guaranteed. That's the other thing is what we have, at the warehouse is what's there now, but depending on, how quickly things are ordered, somebody could order something that is no longer available after they order it. So just want to make sure that people know that. And then let's see. Yeah, you had the same question, Jessica. So that's
Lisa, can I ask a quick question? Is there any monitoring of the ordering so that we don't have hoarding?
Yes. This is Denise. So there is monitoring. First of all, because the sizes of the supplies are so large. So for instance, when somebody orders cups, they're getting 1,000 cups. So everyone will only be able to order one. That'll be, and an important thing just about the order form, just to mention it from a technical issue, is it's in Smartsheet. So if you click on one and then you say, oh, I didn't need that, I meant this other thing, you're going to have to go and click on 0. You can't delete once you've ordered, but 0 is an option. So if you're getting questions from providers, I just want you guys to know that. And then you can't order more than one. So that guarantees that I think we'll have enough supplies to go around. Now you can go back tomorrow and order, and you can order and order again, but because we're going to be cross-checking against the list of all the suppliers, hence why we want you to collect the license exempt regulated subsidy list for us, so we can add that to the emergency childcare list, so that we can make sure that somebody isn't hoarding or over ordering. Or isn't ordering infant diapers when they only have older children in care. So we will be watching all of that. And then to Lisa's point, if the inventory is tied directly to the ordering sheet, so it's fairly real time, there may be a couple times that we miss and somebody orders the cups and they're already all gone. But for the most part, that I think we're pretty well set up for that not to happen, and people can go back and they can order again tomorrow and get different supplies if that's what they need. So we want all the stuff out in the community, but we also want to make sure that everybody has an option to get things. And I think we have a lot of stuff, so I'm not overly concerned about that.
And yes, Nancy, audits will be conducted a couple of times every week to assure that no one provider is over ordering.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I hate to have to ask that, but it's happening. So
that's right. That's right. And the order form is in English and Spanish automatically, as are the instructions and the descriptors of what they're ordering. So there is a little bit of description about what they're getting or how many will be, like 12 rolls paper towel, for instance, in a case, which is what's the automatic piece. Other languages, I know that the letters and some of the information is being translated, but as far as the ordering form goes, we're not able to do that, so we're going to rely on your assistance for folks that need that help.
We do have a couple of questions about how they will know that the items were out of stock.
Yep, that's a fair question. So when a person orders, they're going to get an email immediately back that says, and if it's you that's ordering for them, the email will come to you because we ask who is ordering, what's your email address. That says, thanks for your order, we've received it, and then we'll send an email once the item has, or items have shipped. And I believe on there is a packing slip that says all the things that you ordered. So if things are out of stock, they're going to be removed from the list. So we don't run into this issue of setting expectations of like, go ahead and order formula, it's coming soon, because we don't know when that is. And we don't want to, or have you have to field a lot of questions or set expectations we can't meet. So I think, I believe we will not run into stock issues. It would be a pretty rare occasion. So if it's there, it's there. If it's not there, then we don't have it. And just to be clear, I mean, we looked at the supplies that people put on the survey, like, you know, tissue, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, baby wipes, formula, diapers. These are the things we ordered. And of course, the items that we're all finding are difficult to get are difficult to get.
Okay. So this is great update. We couldn't wait to tell you, which is why we entered it here as opposed to later on in the agenda. And also it does connect to supporting our providers, licensed and license exempt. And yes, that license exempt does include regulated subsidy, which I saw was a question from Lynette. Also, Sherry is suggesting that perhaps we're tracking this in NACRAWare and creating an action log to be able to track supply orders or supply order coaching. Would that be helpful? And if so, please go ahead and enter that into chat. So, and then another question, if they run out, well, it's moving so fast, and still need it, if it shows up on again later on, they can still order it. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. We're not going to stop people from getting what they need.
Yeah, and Heather, yes. Oh, go ahead.
This is Joan. I was just going to say, I want people to be clear. We may, I mean, we should act like this is what we're going to have. In other words, you know, we're still waiting for things to arrive, but we don't anticipate having the funding to have another round of ordering of supplies at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Heather, yes, disinfecting and sanitizing products are out. That's correct. They're a while out. Soon they may not even show up. So just keep that in mind, because as Denise said earlier, that, you know, the medical community will get those first. That's priority, and we're competing with the entire nation. So that's kind of where we are right now. So you won't double up. If you can find it for using the Ford Family Foundation money, please do.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. And I appreciate you responding to Sherry in the chat box, so I'm sure Sherry will track that. I wanted to just connect about NACRAWare and NACRAWare updating. With Sherry and Hannah, we've been kind of processing through what's the best thing to do, and I'd kind of like to share a little bit of the tension going on as far as being able to get NACRAWare database updated. We have an emergency response team. Our leadership meets regularly every evening. I think you start at 4:30, Joan, so you guys can at least have a little bit of an evening. Anyway, they meet for a few hours. And we provide a dashboard of data showing where we are in our emergency childcare. We also are getting a lot of calls from media. So there's a lot of demand from media to say, where are we with our emergency childcare? What are the vacancies? What are the referrals? And I know all of you are hearing it at a community level as well. And so the licensing specialists are working as hard as they can to get licensed emergency childcare applications processed, which you know goes through the form site to all of you to be updated. They're also working on the other pathway, which is the license exempt programs such as preschools, recorded preschools, school age programs, those kinds of things. So not talking about the licensing exempt with 3 or fewer children. And then there's another avenue, and that's school-based, and that's in the process of getting started to be processed. So the bottom line is we've got to get them in NACRAWare as soon as possible so that we can respond to media and we can respond to our leadership to give the information. As you know, and have always known, we work with 2 databases that don't talk to each other. That's NACRAWare and CRIS. So there's a lot of push to get, as CRIS is getting updated by the licensing specialist, it's getting NACRAWare updated at the same time so our data reports match as closely as possible. So we've been trying to strategize and brainstorm, how do we do this and do it in the best way and have it done quickly? So with that, we know we probably have, Joan, you may know this, or Tammy, actually, if you're still on, may know this. We probably have around 400 more yet to be processed as approved in the licensed group. Is that correct?
You know, we have 1,571 that are approved. I found out today, right. What I don't know is how many have made it through our intake and are sitting with the licensors who are doing their process. So if we got roughly 2,000 applications total, then yes, 400 would be about right. I never got a total number of our applications though, because there was so many. But I would say it sounds about right.
Okay, great, thank you. With all of these tensions in mind and being able to be as responsive as possible, we did ask that Sherry and Hannah and Lindsay, the team that is doing updating, they get it in NACRAWare. They just get that information in NACRAWare right away. And so that way we can align the two. So I believe Hannah and Lindsay are having data evening parties where they're entering information as it comes in, because it is coming in fairly quickly. So that is caused, and yes, that has caused confusion because all of you are going in. Can you hear me? Okay. All of you are going in, and when you get the form site reports and entering information. So what we'd like to do is really clarify that Sherry, Hannah, and Lindsay and team will enter this initial information from form site for the reasons of getting these data reports done as quickly as possible to be able to respond to media. Isn't it great that people care about childcare referrals now? And it does show the gaps in our childcare referral system and how much we need a new database, which is coming. And your work is really about supporting them, calling them, connecting with them, finding out what they need. That could be from supplies to staff to resources to questions that they may have around what social distancing looks like with children, the masks, which we hope will have guidance here soon, as well as their vacancies. And that's a really key piece as well, because that's another data point we're tracking. So I guess, Sherry and Hannah, do you have any clarifications? And then I want to make sure we have any questions or concerns shared as I've shared this information with you.
Yeah, I just want to add that a lot of us didn't have to do, a lot of the CCRRs, you were keeping up great with pulling that information out of there. A lot of it was just in respect of, as sort of additional data needs kind of emerged, we had to make really quick changes in our process and where it was entered in NACRAWare and how it was entered. And we just didn't feel like it was fair, or we were able to keep up with all those changes and communicate it with everyone that was in the system. And so it just made it easier for us to do it ourselves. And then if we needed to add a field or change the process, we could do it quickly. So that was a lot of it too. We anticipate that this at some point will be done processing the applications and form site, and then that information will be entirely in NACWare. And that's really when we can provide some clear and more robust reporting, because right now having those two different data locations and trying to merge those and have them not necessarily match if we haven't entered all the forms in yet for that day makes it a little difficult to develop new reports. So that's really where we're headed, and it looks like we're close. I mean, we have over 1,600. We think we have about 400 more. So at some point, that application form is not going to be where we pull any reporting from. It'll all come from NACWare. In the meantime, Hannah and I have kind of talked about different emails we've gotten from different people and different requests that we've had, and we'll be working on not only recording some really quick videos to show you how to pull some of the data that you've asked for, but also we'll probably send out a quick refresher on, and maybe even just almost like a cheat sheet instead of a full procedure that gives you an idea of where certain information is going into NACWare and what those fields are. We're also having to add a few action logs and make some changes to the Find Child Care Online website. And so we'll be communicating more information about that as well.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions, any comments? What are your thoughts at this point as far as knowing the role of connecting with providers versus the enrolling information?
This is Carrie from 211. We're getting quite a few calls from providers that are wanting to know their status right now. So they say they've sent in the form and then they want to know their status in NACWare. And we were told basically not to tell people their status, because I think we're seeing that originally people were added in there as emergency providers that haven't actually been approved yet. So would we send those to the CCRR then, or would we be sending those to Hannah now? I think I'm confused about like who to send the providers to that have questions.
Carrie, this is Hannah. It sounds like they're wanting to know their status. Did they get their status approved by Office of Child Care? They're wanting to check on their application that it was received and processed. Have they heard from their licensor?
It's hard for us to know exactly what they're wanting, because sometimes I think they are telling us that they know they're approved, but they can't find themselves on the Find Child Care Oregon website, and so they think that they're not getting referrals. I think that's one of the common things that they're asking is like, why am I not getting referrals? I thought I was approved. I thought I was an emergency provider. Some people are wanting to know their status, whether or not they're approved. And we just don't know. We've been sending them to the CCRR and Office of Child Care, but now I'm not sure from this conversation if I should be sending them somewhere different.
Tammy, are you still on?
Yeah, I mean, what the licensor can tell them is whether they've been approved or not. And so they could call 211 and the problem is there was some confusion out there with the application to become an emergency substitute. And so some people thought there was an approval or denial that was through that, although I haven't heard any more confusion for that for about a week. So our licensor can tell them if their application was approved, but they couldn't respond to the status in NACWare.
Right. So I can hopefully fill this gap a little bit, because and Dawn as well and Tammy just did somewhat too. We've really been working hard on how all of these different people and databases talk to each other. The databases, let's be clear, do not talk to each other, which is the big problem. But how it's working is that the application comes through to the Office of Child Care. It goes through an intake process. It's checked to ensure that there's no nothing again that is there's no problems with complaints or anything like that. It is then sent, when that's okay, it's then sent to the licensing specialist who has that caseload. The licensing specialist calls, talks through it, makes sure they understand, and the licensing specialist, seeing no issues, will approve, and then with that approval, they send it through the form site. When CCRNRs get the form site report, you know it's approved. As when TRI now as well, they're also getting it. You know it's approved. You can enter it into NACRAWare. Knowing we probably have about 400 more that have not gone through this process yet, they're what we call pending. The problem is they're not in NACRAWare yet. So Carrie, you're right. You can't go into NACRAWare and just see emergency child care coded on there and know for sure that they're approved. So the best thing to do is send them to their licensing specialist who does the approval at Office of Child Care. What Sherry was just saying is that it will get caught up. We will get caught up. What's in the NACRAWare database now, and which is causing some of the confusion, and we just have to breathe through it, is that we have those almost 1,600, or maybe a little over 1,600, coded and approved as emergency child care that have gone through the application process. Those are the licensed ones who have gone through that. We still have some that were coded ECC based on the survey that we originally did before the application was created. So it was what we did in the very beginning. So we still have some of those in the database. Until we get all caught up, we are not going to know for sure. So once we're all caught up with the licensed emergency applications approved, Sherry's going to go in and she will, all the rest of them, mark them temporary closed and no referral status. So that's the governor's orders, and that's how they need to be. Licensed and exempt are not included in that, as you know. So they can continue to offer care. And as you talk to them, it sounds like exactly what needs to happen, and that is you're checking with them. Do you have vacancies? Are you willing to offer care, and can we put you in referral status? And that way they'll be referred. Some of them may not want to because they're caring for the same families and don't have space for that. So between that and the vacancies, I'll just finish here just a second, Taya, and then definitely I want to take your question. Those are things that you'll need to be doing. But I just want to also clarify that if a provider decides, you know, that they did not get their application in a timely manner, March 31st, but they've decided, yes, I want to provide emergency child care. I will follow these rules. Then encourage them to send the application in, and Office of Child Care will decide what to do. So they make the final decisions, but you can say they can still apply if they want to, even at this late of a date. Okay, so Dawn, I don't want to lose your thought because I know you're going to connect to that, and then Taya.
Okay, thank you, Margie. Yeah, I think one thing that is probably part of the confusion as well is, you know, we prioritized at the Office of Child Care to get the licensed applications in. I am pretty confident, and Tammy, correct me if I'm wrong, those will all be done by the end of the week. I think that's what we're on track to do. We've just now started moving through the unlicensed. And I know that there was a question in there about school districts as well and entering in school districts. So because we were prioritizing the license, those have not yet been entered. We're just now starting to get those entered into the form site. I know that Margie, some of the first school district applications, I think there were 17, got sent in and added into NACRAWare, but now we've got a small team of Ronnie, me, Angela, and Brett and Kara who are going to be calling all the schools, districts, and getting that information. And then the licensing specialist, when they start doing their virtual visits for those unlicensed, like might be a preschool recorded program that's becoming an emergency facility, that will be getting entered in once they have their virtual visit. I think the other thing that I guess I would like you guys to know is that in my conversations with people that are wanting out of the goodness of their heart to offer childcare, thinking that there's a need in their community, I'm really encouraging them to do a needs assessment, and I impress upon them how that there is a lot of childcare available across the state. So just know I am trying to not sound like I'm trying to discourage them, but making sure that they have all the information that they need, because we know our current licensed providers are hurting so bad.
Thanks, Dawn. Taya Harvey, are you, please?
Okay, yeah, thank you. So my staff and I still have a little confusion around, okay, so in that email that came out on Friday with some of the updates, it talks about the emergency child care facility application form is for all types of care, and including license exempt. And so we were trying to figure out how that holds up this conversation, I guess primarily about regulated subsidy providers, because they're continuing to provide care anyway without the application. Is it that when we make this contact that you're talking about, that we should also ask them to fill out an application, or can they just go in the system for referrals? Do you know what I mean? That paragraph that came out,
yeah,
trying to confuse us a little bit.
Yeah, and I realized that. I apologize, I wasn't really clear on that. So when I say license exempt, I mean just what Dawn was referring to as like preschools who were recorded, or I'm not referring to the 3 or fewer license exempt or regulated subsidy. Those do not have to go through an approval process, and I can make that clarification in writing so everybody has that. And then also, Tammy, since you're still on, I did get the message. What's that?
I wanted to follow what you just said. So this is where it gets a little complicated. There are some recorded preschool programs that are also regulated subsidy providers. So when we say the regulated subsidy don't have to apply, that's only referring to the 3 or fewer, the people that are caring for 3 or fewer, and that's it. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Tammy. And then there's one more. The guidance I received from, I thought it was you. It was 4 days ago. The licensing specialist in Taya Nolan's region says that that no providers can apply at all now that the deadline is passed. I was under the impression that if they've changed their mind, they could apply if they want to stay open or get open again, I should say.
Yep, I will get out a clarification email to our staff so that they understand that. Your understanding is correct. They have to be closed right now until they get approved, if they didn't apply by the deadline. But yeah, they can decide to reopen next week. So I'll get something out to our staff.
Thank you, Tammy. And then there's one more that we probably want to make sure. This comes from Heather. I have a few providers who are being told by licensing that they filled out the wrong form. Will they still be able to submit the form? They care for essential workers and have not closed. My understanding was that there was only one form on the website, and it's whether it's schools or licensed could use that same form.
That's correct, Marty.
Yeah, I think they were filling out that previous form regarding that had the submit button thing, so it was sent out way earlier. And so I think that's where the confusion is. I mean, we definitely were putting it out right and things like that, but I wasn't surprised when I heard back from this one provider, because there tends to be some confusion sometimes. So, but that's what the licensing person told her.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
you look at on a case-by-case basis. So, you know, if an application comes in with a story, with an explanation, then we would look at it and evaluate it.
It would just be hard because I know she's been trying. I mean, she's recently just filled her site for her to go back and close it reopen it. So
yeah. So I would assume that she's had communication with her licensor during the confusion. So, you know, we would look at what the scenario was.
okay.
Great. So I do want to, it sounds like Sherry Friedman has an answer for Mary Wolf. And then looking at the time, we do have Kim Larson on, and she's going to share some key information around distance learning and supporting our providers. So Sherry, if you want to help with responding to Mary's question, and then let's go ahead and move forward, and we'll come back to this after we hear from Kim.
Okay. Yeah, Mary was asking if she could do those updates, and I think what would work best is we don't definitely want to, you know, if you're getting your notification first thing in the morning and then we don't get the information entered into NACWare until a few hours later, we don't want to override any vacancy information that you've done, but we still have to go in and make sure that certain fields are added in there for reporting purposes. So there has been an action log added that is for an emergency vacancy check. And if you use that action log, it indicates to us that the vacancy data has already been entered for you, and then we would just confirm the rest of the information. So it's not like you're completing the entire entry, but we don't want to stop the work that you're doing to get those updated vacancies. The other thing I want to mention is that I don't know if anyone's been keeping up with or getting notifications about our pre-emergency update form. So that would be the one that we were using to send out for market price survey and for vacancy checks and annual updates. But there have been some providers that have submitted through there. Some of it could be that it was prior to us sending out the emergency form, or they may just have that link and be providing information. So if you need help locating those forms again or figuring out how to get that information, please let me know and I can send you a link for that.
Mary, you're on mute. And you're still on mute. Okay. If you want to put it in the chat box, that would be great. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to Kim Larson. Kim, thank you for your patience. We've been getting a lot of questions around this, so I want to make sure that you have the opportunity. And I also want to thank everyone for this great conversation and these good clarifying questions. We are learning so much, so we can keep addressing all of this as we go. So Kim, would you like the screen? And welcome.
Thanks for having me. I don't know, I think I'm okay without the screen. If somebody would like me to share a document that I mentioned, I'm more than happy either to send it to you or I can pop it on my screen.
I think I have it, so I'll get it up. Yeah,
great.
I'll get it up. Okay.
Really, I just was joining for today just to be here to answer questions and just to make it clear the waiver that we've essentially issued that all approved set 1, set 2, set 3 trainings are able to be delivered by webinar throughout the month of April. And then additionally, essentially how that extends to the training calendar and how to make sure it's really clear to our providers and the users of the training calendar if you are going to be hosting a training that is distance. And then just to be here to answer any other questions that any of you might have regarding distance. So yeah, and then also just to touch on kind of the parameters of distance and what the Oregon registry accepts. So what Margie, what you just posted up was specific to hosting distance on the training calendar. So I'm happy to start there. For your already approved trainings, they're already in the training calendar, and so it's not possible to edit the title and the description, but you can click there's a box you can check that says location to be announced, and you can click that. And the street address, you can type in how it's going to be delivered. So that could be online, that can be webinar, hybrid, what have you. And then it's really helpful to provide those additional notes, like, is there a link they need to click and access? Do they need to sign up somewhere that's outside of the training calendar? If it's live, is there additional notes about that? So anyway, it's great to use the additional notes to provide those extra details and make it clear. If the session is not already an approved session in the Oregon Registry, you can also add those details to the title of the training and then the description. But those 3 that are on that sheet can be used across the board for all templates and trainings that you're going to be posting in the training calendar at a distance. Are there any questions about that? And then should I check the chat box?
Yeah, I was just looking. No, it doesn't look like at this point. Where would you like me to go next? We can. Shannon, did you have a question? If you did, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. So it looks like she's going to type into the chat box.
I do have a question.
Did you want me to? Oh, okay. Thanks.
So Kim, are we just going through April with this? Can we not extend it into May? Because we like to get things done, or plan things ahead of time so that we can get data entry and stuff done. So I'm wondering if we can plan past April.
And then Karen, is your question specific to the waiver? Yes. Yeah, so let me just quickly jump there. So the waiver currently is until the end of April. We're discussing as a team what that means after April. We're also kind of waiting to see what happens with the state of emergency. But currently it goes through April. It's helpful to hear your thoughts on that. And if anybody has thoughts on that, it would be helpful to hear them. And I can go back and we can discuss it as a team. If it needs to be extended past April, if others also feel that way, it would be helpful for me to know that.
And another question, are you still approving Set 2 trainings?
We are, yes. We've actually been, our normal process is that we would be downloading all of the incoming training session proposals on a monthly basis, and we're now actually doing that on a weekly basis. Given that our review team cannot meet in person, we are now just doing the review internally. So 2 to 3 people will review each session, and we'll be prioritizing any sessions that by presentation date, but of course they'll also be going in the order they were received. But I think that we might see for some, there might be a quicker turnaround time with the process we're currently doing. But yes, please still submit your training session proposals.
So you asked me thoughts on it. So my thoughts, and I don't know, we all have different backbone agencies, but at LCC, we already know we cannot go on campus until at least June 14th. So we have time to create new trainings, get them approved, and then deliver them from distance, by the end of April. There's just no way for that to happen. So, and maybe some other people are in a similar boat, but we already know June 14th is our absolute soonest we get to go back.
So, and then are you talking about sessions that are already approved, or are you talking about new sessions that you would need to create and get approved?
We would need new ones. We don't have, a big supply to choose from right now. So we would have to get new ones approved. Or have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful? Well, my question is, and if you are creating them, would it be helpful to create them with the mindset that you would be hosting them virtually, that via webinar or distance?
Yeah, that's the plan. I said, from now on, everything that we create. We're just going to do that way so we can be prepared in the future. I'm just looking at what next term's calendar is going to look like for us. That's where my concern is, falling short.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's kind of feeling that how is training really going to happen at the capacity it was happening before, now that it's going online. Yeah.
So Kim, Shannon also has a question. She has 25 plus webinars scheduled. Can she go back and update with the new distance info, or is it only for new?
No, it's actually really helpful if you could go back and update the ones that are currently already published. So I would recommend doing that. It's helpful for us on our side, but it's really helpful for your providers, because then they know that those trainings are still going to take place, and they know how they're going to be taken, how they will take place. So I would encourage you all to go back and update your existing published events on your training calendar.
Great, thank you. So Kim, shall we, oh, it looks like we have another question. Our focus is really on CPR and orientation at this time. This is from Christine. No way our training will even come close to what it was this quarter. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have noticed that some, and I would actually throw this question out to you all, as I have noticed that some, there were a process of satellite training that was taking place, and I've seen that some of those have been scheduled again. And I would just say that to you all as a question, if more RNRs could participate together. I'm not sure the structure of that, but yeah, it's how to work together since we're all virtual. If more RNRs could include other RNRs or whatnot.
Great, and Shannon actually has that. More than welcome to call her to get connected. Great. So did you want to move on to another, something else?
The last thing I just wanted to mention is around distance and just being really clear, what is the Oregon registry? Oh, there's two things I wanted to mention. Sorry, it was the distance, and then I'm just being really clear on what the Oregon registry verifiers will accept for distance for trainings that are not already approved. So I'm just opening up a document. I apologize, my computer connection is a little bit slow. My internet connection. Okay, come on. Well, for some reason it's not coming up. But essentially that for distance training, if it's going to be a video training, there needs to be follow-up after that. And that could be interaction, that could be a knowledge check, what have you, but there does need to be follow-up after a video training takes place. Another item is that there can be, they won't accept more than 10 hours of training in one day. That's distance. So you, just to make that clear. And there's one other item, but I'm going to send this document and to Lisa and John and Margie, and they can share that with you all. But it's also on our website at Training and Education Criteria, and it just lists what the Oregon Registry accepts for distance learning that's not already approved in our system. So that's the last item around the training calendar. And I apologize that I couldn't get that document up and giving you the exact details. And then one more item I just wanted to share with you all is that we've created an online training organization list. So these are organizations that we've already accepted training from that provide online training. And they're not necessarily vetted by us, but it is a list that we have accepted in the past. And that's going to be available on our website. But I'll also share that with John, Lisa, and Margie, with you three, that you guys can also share with the CCRR directors and make that available to providers so they can see where they can access online training.
Thank you so much, Kim. This is great. Yeah. And so we will be sure, she'll send that to us. We'll be sure to get that out to everyone. Just so you know, Hannah is the one who kind of collects all this information, and she will be the one to send everything to you. So be watching for her email. When as a follow-up. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to talking about, we already talked about supplies, but John and I don't know if Candy is still on or anyone from TRI could speak to substitutes, but John, if you want to finish up the updates around substitutes, that would be great.
Sure, I'll be fast. So what you need to know about subs is there's about 700 of them that have kind of fully gone through the process and been vetted as far as having the training and the criminal background registry clearance, and there's a couple hundred or more that are kind of in the process of finishing up some of those things. So there may be more people interested over time. TRI sent out some information yesterday to get some updates from those folks who had signed up to see if some people have gone back to work or some people have decided that they have health issues or don't want to risk it, or things like that. And so that went out to all of those approved folks, and about 90 of them have responded already, if not more. And only 5 people withdrew from the list. So that tells you there's still quite a bit of interest in people wanting to work as substitutes if they can be mobilized. And so you're going to receive some information today, which will be a letter that we sent out yesterday to the potential subs, kind of letting them know they may never get a referral. I think it's important for people to know that there's going to be some need, but the immense amount of people that are interested in being mobilized right now because they've been displaced, and the number of emergency programs that might actually need staff are few and far between. So I think there are definitely people who need staff, but because of the reduced numbers and things like that, and then a lot of our providers have less families in care than they anticipated, I don't know that we're going to have as many people needing subs. But as you, I hope you guys received, and maybe we can just send this out again too, there was some guidance that came out from probably Hannah from TRI that was some talking points if you're trying to talk programs through how to access subs. Can I get some head nods if anybody remembers seeing that come across their emails in the last week? Okay, we'll send that out again too. And I have also heard that some people aren't getting some of these emails. So if you don't get it, let me know. I don't know how you would let me know, but anyway, if you don't see it within the day and you think about it, send us an email, because it means that it's bouncing or it's getting stuck in your spam folders or whatever. So anyway, so we'll get that sort of the talking points, and it also has some information in there about how you can get right into the form. If there's an emergency program that wants a sub, you can kind of enter what their needs are, and then TRI can do the connection with the potential subs. They've already done some referrals of any of the programs that a few weeks ago had said they needed referrals. There was about 23 of all the programs that had initially said they wanted some subs that actually still wanted subs. And so they sent out about 100 plus, no, 100, almost 200 referrals to different people to those 20 some programs. So I think that's a good start. But as soon as this letter goes out today that talks about the supplies, it also has, hey, if you need subs, this is all going to those emergency childcare facilities. So there could be a whole new slew of facilities that are seeking some subs. They've been directed to go to the TRI, the CCRR helpline, which Lauren is staffing at TRI, but that could create a lot more interest in the subs. We're going to send you that letter just in case you're getting any questions about that, and we'll send you the letter that went out to the subs yesterday that was really just kind of telling them, hey, this may not be all you hoped it to be, but referrals may start happening as soon as this other letter goes out, so be ready. And we also kind of gave them some talking points, or not talking points, but some suggestions as subs are getting calls from facilities to make sure that they're thinking of this a little bit like it's an interview, because it probably will be. And so, you know, the first thing they shouldn't ask, most likely, is, hey, what's my wage going to be? They should probably see what the need is, see if it matches, and that the philosophy of the program matches theirs as a human being, and then they can start to negotiate some of those other things. But we also wanted to make sure they knew that they need to, you know, no magic money is coming to pay for their wage. It would have to be the facility that would work on that with them. And of course, facilities now potentially have some options to help offset some of that stuff, and other resources that are coming down the line here within the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll be able to give other information about resources we have that are coming into the state, but that's still to be determined. But those things could help facilities offset costs. So those letters are coming out. If you guys have any questions, if you look at the talking points or your staff look at them and they're not understanding it, feel free to get in contact with folks at TRI or me. And I will pause there. That was a lot of words in a short period of time, and I know that only 25% of you even listen to me normally, so when I talk fast, you probably don't listen at all. So, breathe.
John, there are some questions. How many are approved? Just clarification on that. How many approved?
The subs that have totally gone through the vetting process and have all the training and criminal background, there's 703 right now, and there's another 200 plus that are in the sort of process. So they might not have their current CBR, or they might not have one of the trainings like Safe Sleep or First Aid CPR, that kind of stuff. So the folks are going through that process.
Hey, John.
Great, thank you.
There's not 700 approved. There's 704 who have completed the form, and of those 400 and something, and again, Pat sends that out daily, and so most of the ones who have been approved are already in NACRAWare and should be caught up very soon if they're not. But it's over 400 are listed by region or by counties.
So Candy, okay, I see what you're saying. What I just told everyone, which was slightly inaccurate, there are 468 that are in NACRAWare and have been verified, and then 474 total that have been verified, and a few that still need to go into NACRAWare. What I quoted you around the 700 means that those 468 are willing to work across multiple counties, and so that's where it gets kind of a duplicated number. My apologies, that was very confusing. Thank you for the correction. 468 people, and again, about 90 of those have already responded back with some updates to their availability from the email that went out yesterday. So thanks for that correction.
And it sounds like directors are not getting Pat's updates. So I think that might help in the questions about how many are available in each of the regions. And hopefully we'll also be able to learn how to sort that as well when Sherry does the training around referrals as well. We might be able to get that where you can easily sort it in NACRAWare. But is that something we can make sure, Candy, could you talk to Pat about that to make sure CCRR directors are receiving the updated information?
Sweet.
Okay.
I would.
Were you on mute?
I was, but I just typed it in. It's faster for me to type than to unmute. Yes.
Got it. Got it. Oh, and it looks like Eva sent a link. So thank you, Eva. And that looks like it's got the updates in it. So that's in chat box. If people could take a look at that, that would be great. And Lauren got the CCRR helpline number in there, so people can know what that is. And we are actually coming to our time, which yes.
This is Lisa. Before you unwind on everything, can I give one other really quick update to everybody?
Yes, please.
So this came about yesterday. We had a question come in. This is related to Focus Childcare Networks and the work that your coordinators have been doing around one-on-ones with your participants. And we just wanted to give you guys the option to, you know, because there's so much going on right now, you're being asked to connect with license programs, license exempt programs. There's so much happening around emergency childcare that we know they've got a lot going on. So we wanted to give you the option, if you need to pause one-on-ones for the time being, for the next couple of weeks. What we're going to do is reassess on our meeting on April 21st to revisit as a group and just kind of see how everything's going with everybody and see about what priorities will be at that point. We know that you're doing a lot of work around supporting those participants, and if you're doing group sessions, we'd like to see those continue to happen, but the one-on-ones could be paused for the next few weeks. Do want to make sure too that you know that the communities of practice that John, Hannah, Maria, and myself are facilitating, those will continue this month and into next month. So we'll be connecting with the Focus Childcare Network coordinators in upcoming meetings, and wanted to let you know that those will still be happening. But just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that if for the time being, for the next couple of weeks, those one-on-ones need to be paused, we support that, and we're here to answer any questions you might have around that.
So there are a few, thank you, Lisa, very much. There are a few other questions in there. I know there are some DHS urgencies. I would be really grateful if you guys could send me those questions. I'll connect. I know Regina is on, but Regina, it may take a little bit of a conversation, so I would like to be able to have us, maybe you, Jen, John, Lisa, and me have a meeting and kind of talk through some of the questions. So please send them to us. Okay, thanks, Regina. Send us in an email, and we'll try and get that resolved today. And then also, there was one other thing that, Mary, preschool promise expansion. I think Dana is off. I just saw Gwen get off too, but I would suggest, I think there's some information on our website around that. As far as we know, the expansion date hasn't changed, but we would be keeping you updated on that as soon as we know. I think there was just an update on the programs that went out recently, actually, in an email. I think you all got it. We think.
Margie?
But I'll try and dig that up.
Margie,
yes?
Margie, this is Andy, and I might be able to address it a teeny
yeah.
bit. Hi.
Oh, good. Okay.
Hi. Yeah. Hi. I can say that there are no other updates other than that the review process has been obviously moved to May 4th, and we are continuing to move forward as planned. And if anything changes in the direction that the ELD has received in regards to the preschool promise expansion from the legislation, we will let everybody know as soon as we have that. But as of right now, everything is continuing to be planned to move forward as the ELD has been directed to do.
Thank you, Andy. And also, we extended this for a half an hour. Would you like us to continue to meet for 2 hours in our upcoming meetings? Just nod. Okay. Yeah, that works. It seems like we need it, right? Okay. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your time and all your great ideas and all that you're doing. So we'll talk again soon. Bye. Bye. Bye.